The Man of the Law's Tale, Part 1. In Syria once there dwelt a company of wealthy merchants, serious, straight, and wise, that had a far-flung trade in spicery, and cloth of gold, and satins of rich dyes, all serviceable stuff that could surprise with novelty, and business was a pleasure, dealing with them and bartering for their treasure. It happened that some merchants of this sort made up their minds to venture out to Rome, whether for business dealings or for sport. Nor were they satisfied to stay at home and send a messenger, but crossed the foam in person thither. And where their expectation of profit lay, they found accommodation. And having made a sojourn in that town, at their good pleasure for a month or more, it happened that the excellent renown of Constance, daughter of the emperor, reached them, with every detail answered for, and fresh particulars from day to day came to these Syrians, as I shall say. This was the common voice of every man: Our emperor, God save his majesty, has such a daughter since the world began. There never was another such as she, for beauty and for goodness. She could be the queen of Europe, with all eyes upon her. May God sustain her long in health and honor. Peerless in beauty, yet untouched by pride, young but untainted by frivolity. In all her dealings goodness is her guide, and humbleness has vanquished tyranny. She is the mirror of all courtesy, her heart the very chamber of holiness, her hand the minister of all distress. All this was true, as God himself is true, but to our purpose, when their ships were laden, these Syrian merchants started off anew for Syria, having seen this blissful maiden, happy in this as in the goods they trade in, pursued their business as they did before, and lived contented. I can say no more. It happened that these merchants stood in grace with the young Syrian sultan. Their return from Rome, or any other foreign place, he met with a benevolent concern, and entertained them eagerly to learn the news from other kingdoms, any word they had to tell of wonders seen and heard. And among other things they made report of Lady Constance, and with special mention of her nobility, in such a sort as to entrap the Sultan's pleased attention. Her features filled his fancy and invention, till all the passion of his heart was cast on loving her as long as life should last. In that large book that overhangs the earth, and people call the heavens, it well may be that it was written in his stars at birth, love was to be his death for certainty. The death of every man is there to see, patterned in stars clearer than in a glass, could one but read how all will come to pass. For in the stars, and many years before his birth, the death of proud Achilles stood, Hector's and Pompey's, Caesar's too, the war of Thebes, shorn Samson's death, the hardihood of Hercules, and Socrates the good. And Turnus murdered, all was written plain, man cannot read it, he is dull of brain. And thus it was the Sultan, to be brief, summoned the privy council of his land, and said that of his purposes the chief was to obtain the Lady Constance's hand, and that at once, for they must understand that he must perish, lacking her for wife. Let them take thought in haste to save his life. Various counselors said various things. They argued and conjectured in profusion. They brought forth many subtle reasonings, and spoke of charms and magical illusion, but finally were drawn to the conclusion that there was no advantage to be gained except by marriage. That alone remained. They saw great difficulties in the case, reasoning thus to make their feelings plain, that there were such discrepancies to face between their laws and customs, it was vain to ask a Christian prince to entertain thoughts of allegiance under the dispensation Mahomet blessedly had given to their nation. And he replied, Rather than that I lose the Lady Constance, I will be baptized. I must be hers. In this I cannot choose. O leave your arguments and be advised. Can you not see my life is jeopardized? I have a sickness she alone can cure. It is a grief I cannot long endure. What need is there for further dilatation? I say, by treaties and by embassy and by the Holy Father's meditation, backed by the Church and the nobility, to work deconstruction on Mahometry, and to enlarge the blessed law of Christ. All were agreed, the arguments sufficed. The Sultan with his peers, in all their pride, and all his lieges, were to undergo their christening. Constance was to be his bride, and certain gold, how much I do not know, determined for the party to bestow. In surety, oaths were sworn on either side. Fair Constance, God Almighty be your guide. Now some of you expect, if I may guess, that I should tell you all the preparation made by the Emperor in his nobleness for Lady Constance at the celebration, but you must know that the elaboration, ordained for an occasion such as this, cannot be told in a parenthesis. For bishops were appointed to attend, ladies and lords and knights of high renown, and many others. Let me make an end. And all were notified throughout the town. To pray with great devotion, calling down Christ's blessing on the match, and to improve a prosperous journey to the Syrian shore. At last the day of her departure came. I say there came that day of fatal woe. No longer might she tarry or exclaim, for each and all were ready decked to go. Pale Constance rose in sorrow, for the glow of color left her cheek as she prepared her, knowing too well that nothing would be spared her. Alas, what wonder it is if she wept at being sent into a stranger nation, and parted from the friends that long had kept her tenderly, to suffer subjugation to one she scarcely knew by reputation. All husbands are good husbands heretofore. Wives have established this, I say no more. She said in tears, "O father, your poor girl, your Constance, softly fostered in your love, and O beloved mother, crown and pearl of all my joy, save only Christ above. To your kind graces she that was your dove commands herself and journeys to the shore of Syria, and shall never see you more. Alas, alas, forth to a barbarous nation at once to go, but since it is your will, may Jesus Christ, that died for our salvation, give me the strength of purpose to fulfill his wishes. Wretched girl, to fare so ill, and yet what matter? Woman is a thrall, disposed and ruled over by men in all.